What's poppin'? We got the house history class, man. Happy Corona break to y'all.
You know what it is. Go ahead, like and subscribe to the channel. This is where you finna learn about the history. You feel me? Tune in.
Straight like that.
What's going on, guys? Today I'm coming to you with a video on the progressive era. Now, interesting about this note packet is your progressive era note packet is like already filled out for you. So I'm just gonna be going over the main stuff pretty quickly to make sure that you understand the main things that you need to know for the progressive era. It's just a front and back worksheet. It's a pretty easy little packet. The big thing with the progressive era is you got to understand these people that are involved in it are the people who are trying to, you know, the word progressive or progress American life as they know it. So these people are really in charge with making, I would say, the American people or the middle class and lower class peoples and their lives and their work conditions and all that, and just the American life make it better. So the first person I want to hit on is going to be this guy by the name of Upton Sinclair. Upton Sinclair is important because he writes something known as the Jungle, which is going to lead to the Meat Inspection Act, and it's going to lead to the Pure Food and Drug Inspection Act too. And so the big part about this is he highlights these conditions in like meat factories or meat plants. And he shows pictures, he writes about it, and he publishes this book, and it's become a very, very popular book, and people are going to get to see, you know, what's going on in these factories and the kind of the conditions that people are working in. People are working without shoes, there's young kids, there's filth everywhere, and he really, really highlights the fact that, you know, the federal government kind of needs to do something. So this is going to lead to more federal oversight, and that's the main point with Upton Sinclair in his writing of the Jungle, is it leads to more federal oversight of, you know, what is going into your food, how is the food being made, how sanitary is the process. So if you go to any food business and you go to the door and you see their little sanitation grade, you probably can thank him, because he's a big part of making sure that, number one, we're getting good food, and number two, that there's like a healthy, safe, like sanitary way of doing it. The second person I'm going to talk about is Jane Addams. She's most importantly famous for the Whole House, and what the Whole House does, it really provides like social and economic opportunities for individuals that are poor and individuals that can't really go anywhere, especially if you have children. She provides daycare for children and stuff like that, and what it's going to do is going to give you a place to stay. It's going to give you an opportunity to advance yourself, and it's going to give you really educational, like I said, educational and work opportunities to try to get out of your current situation. So this is really, really important for immigrants, because a lot of times this is a huge like immigrant population wave coming right now in the United States, and they're trying to look for jobs, and they oftentimes don't have a whole lot of money when they get there. So she's important when it comes to immigrants. The next person I'm going to talk about is Ida Tarbell. I've already touched on her when talking about the rise of big business and monopolies and trusts and stuff like that. She's important because she's going to be the one responsible for taking down Standard Oil Company. As I said, Standard Oil Company was a monopoly at this time. She knew it, the government really knew it, everybody really knew it, and she's going to be responsible for bringing down Standard Oil Company, which is a big, big, big hit, because again, this is a monopoly, and this is another example of us, of the American people saying, you know, we're not going to accept being controlled by these huge big businesses. So she's very important. If you can remember Tarbell and John D. Rockefeller and Standard Oil, you're right on pace with where you need to be as far as knowledge of her. The next person is going to be Jacob Riis, or Reese, however you want to pronounce it. He's very interesting. He publishes something called How the Other Half Lives. And what that does, he publishes a series of photographs. So if you've ever seen photographs on the PowerPoint, you'll be able to see them. A lot of those pictures of individuals who are poor, they're living in tenement housing, they're living in these really, really disgusting places, and oftentimes there's a small room maybe the size of this or a little even smaller. My library area is not a very large room. It's probably 10 by 10 area, and there might be 12 people living in there, and really it's disgusting, it's filthy. Anytime you have more than, I would say, one or two people in a room, obviously it can get disgusting over time. If you share a room with your brother or sister, I can understand that you probably get that. It shows really how the other half is living, just as the title says, and it kind of highlights the part of, you know, in this time period where so many people are making a whole lot of money and business is great and business is booming, there are a lot of people who are struggling still. So this highlights that, and it really just, again, hits on the poor and the immigrants, and kind of, you know, there's this other side to America. I think a lot of times we forget that, you know, we're so blessed, which is amazing, that we have these nice homes, and you have food on the table, and you have a job, and you guys go to a good school, and you have, you know, educational opportunities that you may not even realize yet. Like I say all the time, you don't really realize what you have at your high school or at your disposal until you go to college. It's like you don't understand, you know, what other kids are going through in different schools because you haven't been there, right? What you know is Hillgrove unless you've transferred from a school. And so the other half of America, even right now, they live a certain way. They have their own little tale and their own little story. And he highlights that, which is very important to let people know that, hey, you know, while business is very good, there are a lot of people that are still struggling in this time. The next person and the last person I'm going to talk about is going to be Teddy Roosevelt. We're going to get to know more about Teddy Roosevelt in my videos to come. Teddy Roosevelt is important because he's going to be the president at this time. As far as the progressive era speaking, he's the president right now. He's most known for his conservation movement, his effort to create these national parks. So if you see Yellowstone, Yosemite, anything like that, you can give credit to him. He's the creator of the national parks. His idea is he wants to conserve these national treasures and these forests for future generations, right? That's why if you ever go to a national park like Yosemite or whatever, when you get there, it's gorgeous. And I usually show pictures of my time in Yosemite. I was there almost this time last year. It's breathtaking. It's one of the probably my top 2 places on earth that I've ever been. So, and I travel a lot, but he establishes these national forests, national parks, and again, the idea is he wants to conserve, you know, the beauty of America. He's big on parks. Both his wife and his mother are going to die, and he becomes very, very attached to these national parks. Teddy Roosevelt, fun fact, this is just random stuff in my head. He's also why you have the teddy bear. So that's important too. Moving on, I'm going to talk about this, I guess on the back page, it talks about racial segregation. So as you all know, racial segregation in the South after the Civil War is not very good. You fast forward, you know, sometime later, it's still terrible. It's not great in today's world, obviously, in certain parts. Is it better than what it was? Sure, but that doesn't mean that's the standard. So it's definitely still got room for improvement. But talking about this time period, there's going to be this idea of Jim Crow laws, which are these state laws that are put into place. And the idea was, again, this is the thing is they're trying to limit the African Americans. So very much like grandfather clause, poll tax, literacy test, all that stuff. These are designed to limit the African American. They're designed to limit them in every single way. And there's a court case that I want you all to remember, and that's Plessy versus Ferguson. And that's on the notes. You should highlight. You should star it. That should ring a bell in your mind, anyways. And what Plessy versus Ferguson says is this: separate is equal. Now, as we know from the works of Dr. King, anything that is separate is inherently unequal. But at this time, this is going to reinforce those Jim Crow laws. So if you ever wonder why there's segregated seating in buses or movie theaters or bathrooms or water fountains, this is why. This is essentially saying that these Jim Crow laws are okay, which of course we know they're not. And this kind of creates the ongoing struggle of what we're still dealing with today, of relationships between white people and African Americans, or just individuals of different color. So make sure you understand Plessy versus Ferguson. The next thing I'm going to highlight is the NDoubleACP. So the NDoubleACP is going to be formed, and it's very important because it's going to be an organization that is going to help fight against some of these inequalities that African Americans are experiencing at this time. Real quick, I'm going to highlight 2 individuals. I think you can't talk about the NAACP without highlighting W.E.B. Du Bois. So it's important that you know him. He is going to be talked about a lot with this other guy by the name of Booker T. Washington. So it's important, speaking of W.E.B., when looking at him, I guess I'm going to try to explain this to you in the fastest way possible. These 2 individuals are, while they both want advancement of African Americans, they have 2 different ways of going about it. And I think it's important that I try to simplify what they're trying to do. So WEB, he's important because he wants change now. So it's kind of like there's two different types of personalities in the world. There's what I call go-getters, and there's what I call people who are more delayed in doing things that they want to do, meaning the people that, like, for example, if I say I want to go on a run and I get up and go, that's a go-getter. If I say I want to go on a run but then I sit down and watch 7 more episodes of Game of Thrones, which is happening, then that's me delaying what I need to do. So WEB, he's going to want change now, meaning he doesn't believe in this idea, this thing of gradual change, because the term gradual change is different to anybody. It's kind of like for teachers, differentiation pops out to me. Everyone's like, what's differentiation? And I'm like, well, what does it mean to you? And everyone, if you go around the room, they have different definitions. Not that you all care about that, but gradual change, he doesn't believe in it, meaning he wants change now. So he doesn't think that the African-American population should have to wait in order to get these rights that they're guaranteed by the United States Constitution, which I agree with him. But the problem is, you're in the South and you're in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, and people are still upset about the Civil War. People today are still upset about the Civil War. Just listen to people talk. And like I said, if you can listen to how people talk or listen to their ideas, you can a lot of times figure out their feelings on the Civil War, which is always very interesting to me. But he believes that, he doesn't want African Americans to wait, and he doesn't want to play into this system of gradual change for these white Americans. The other guy, Booker T. Washington, he is more of a gradual change guy, meaning he's thinking, okay, in time, if we do the things we're supposed to be doing, if we're investing in ourselves, if we're going to, he's famous for his agricultural college and his agricultural education, meaning, okay, our skill, like I talked about when slavery ends, you have this, a lot of people think they're jumping up and down for joy, but it's kind of a scary time. You don't really know what you're going to do. We talked about the system of sharecropping and falling back into what I describe it as slavery 2.0, and it's a very interesting time for sure. So he believes, okay, you have this skill of being able to be productive and be able to be successful when you're talking about an agricultural industry. So what he decides to do is he sets up these colleges and schools and community schools, and it's going to be important because he's saying, all right, let's advance ourselves through these, and then as time evolves, we will continue to have that gradual change. And then again, on the last little section, we have what's called the empowerment of the voter, and this section can be very easy for you guys to turn off. This is just because it's a lot of verbiage, so I'm going to break down those main points that you need to know. And just understand that little middle section just refers to the fact of Americans getting more rights in their daily lives, and Americans getting the ability to decide for themselves how they feel and who they should elect in certain types of governments, and putting those things to action if you don't like who's in your government, right? So like right now, a lot of people are upset with certain individuals in government, or people are happy with certain individuals in government. Well, guess what? If you don't like it, you have the ability to go vote and to change it. So that's something to keep in mind for you all, as some of you will be turning 18 in the next year. So it's here. So the empowerment of American voters. So like I said, during this time period, Americans are trying to get more power when it comes to certain critical issues in the United States, talking about the election of senators, talking about certain bills, talking about different things that they want changed in America. So this is like the word empowerment, or gaining more power of the American voter, is really, really stressed during these times. I'm going to give you a couple main things that you need to know. The first one is initiative, which I wrote down. Voters have the power to be a part of the law-making process, right? So the best way I can remember this is take the initiative. They're the ones that are actively going forth when talking about what laws they want created, and they're putting action to their words, which I think is very, very important when talking about the American people. The second one is recall, from our Parks and Rec people. I always refer to the episode where they recall Nope. They're trying to get Leslie Nope out of office. So if you watch Parks and Rec, a lot of people are like office people, which no disrespect, I get it. I just think Parks and Rec's a little funnier to me at times. So recall means you're allowing citizens to remove individuals from office, which is important Because, like I said, if you don't like them or you don't like the things that they're doing, you have the ability to try to get them removed from office. That's not uncommon. Is it an easy process? No, of course not. But it is something that you can do. So that's recall. Referendum, I like to refer to as referee, meaning kind of you get to decide whether or not you want to approve or repeal an act in legislature. So if you like it, if you don't like it, you get to be the referee for referendum on that. And the final thing I'm going to say is actually an amendment, and that's the 17th Amendment. And so the 17th Amendment is the direct election of the United States senators. So you'll understand that we just had a race for our members of Senate, well, I guess a year ago, right? The whole Stacey Abrams thing. And it's important because, remember, it didn't used to be like this. The senators used to be elected through something called state legislators. Well, the problem is, you know, if you don't like your state legislator, or let's say these individuals who are trying to change things in this current time period, if the state legislator does not feel the same way that they do, and they're the ones that get to elect the senators that represent your state in the United States government, that is a problem. So what happens is again, the people gain this power through the 17th Amendment of being able to elect their own senators. And so that is the last little thing that I have on here as far as the empowerment of the American voter. So this week, if you all watch this review, this does not apply to you, but this week is week 3. Next week for us will be spring break. So you won't have any work, which means we are going to really crank up the work this week as far as U.S. history goes. So make sure you're doing what you're doing. Make sure you're watching the videos all the way through. Yes, I can see how long you watch them. Yes, I can see who clicks through. I can see all of that. So make sure that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, because you're going to be required to turn in work, and I'm going to be required to grade it. I'm pretty sure coming up soon. I think they have their meeting this week. So make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, not only for my class, but for everybody's classes. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you all later.
Thanks for watching History with House.
Don't forget to
like,
comment,
and subscribe.